Genshin Impact, which is a really fun, very pretty game. It is, of course, an action RPG that looks very much like pretty much a console-level, cel-shaded anime-style game. It also takes some obvious inspiration as far as the look of the world itself from Breath of the Wild, and I don't know that I would say set your expectations based on Breath of the Wild, though. I'd say its combat's a little bit more complicated. It has a party system, there's elemental stuff, and also, of course, there are the gacha elements in the game. It is, at its core, a free-to-play, gacha-based action RPG. And as far as I'm concerned, it's a very good example of it. It's not like a set your world on fire type story as far as what I've played so far. However, I'm intrigued enough that I care. And mechanically speaking, they've developed a cycle for the game that I think is engaging and enjoyable. Genshin Impact is out on iOS and Android as well as consoles now. At number 9 is Swap Swap Panda, which might sound like some kind of puzzle game, but it's actually just this really adorable puzzle game in which you can play as a giant panda or a red panda, which it's carrying on its back, swapping between the two to overcome various obstacles and solve various puzzles. Now, I'm not going to go ahead and say that this is like a particularly difficult platformer or that you're going to get frustrated or confused, but I mean, it's kind of a relaxing game with some great music that does actually provide a little bit of a challenge. It's not super fast paced or anything, but I will say that I really enjoy it. I would almost call it one of those palate cleanser games where it's really nice to return to a game that does the fundamentals of platforming really well, and it's just really fun to play. Swap Swap Panda is out on iOS and Android right now. At number 8 is Murderous Pursuits, which is this phenomenal cat and mouse game where you're essentially trying to fake being an NPC to sneak up on other players and kill them. It's like, honestly, one of the coolest multiplayer stealth game ideas I've seen in a while because it takes advantage of your ability to kind of conform your behavior to what you would expect of the NPCs. So, for one, you kind of have to learn about how the NPCs in this game act. And for two, you have to be able to imitate it. Now, those aren't the only methods you can use. You're basically supposed to be sneaking up on people and killing them. There's, a lot of ways you can do that. You can surprise people, pop out of somewhere, etc., etc. It is actually just a really cool game. I know you're probably thinking of Among Us. It's not really like that. It's more of an actual stealth game, whereas there's a lot more to Among Us. But it's a hell of a fun game. Murderous Pursuits is out on iOS and Android right now. Check it out. At number 7 is Icarus M, Riders of Icarus, a new MMORPG. It's a spiritual successor to the PC title Riders of Icarus, if you're familiar. I personally wasn't, so I'll go through a couple of the things that are different about it. This one goes ahead and adds a dragon element, making the combat aerial-oriented. Is it a Panzer Dragoon saga? Maybe not that, but it is a good game. In a lot of ways, it is a cool, fresh aesthetic on a tried and true genre. We've got class-based characters, really big, really cool environments, and we've got the ability to tame monsters, including the bosses, for use in PvE and PvP. This is actually a really gorgeous game. It's visually impressive. I think that it looks great. And I think that, frankly, if you're looking for an MMORPG, it's the one to try out this month. Basically, if you're familiar with familiar systems in MMORPGs, you understand what you're getting gameplay-wise. It's also a pretty darn cool RPG otherwise. Icarus M, Riders of Icarus is out on iOS and Android now. At number 6 is Grand Alliance, which is actually a game that comes to us from Crunchyroll, so a lot of anime sensibilities, obviously. It is a little bit different than what you might expect. It's kind of an RPG, kind of a beat 'em up, and I gotta say, I think this is a great mix of genres. It really works. I'll say the graphics can be a little bit distracting for me because they're very anime-based, but they move like a Flash game. However, it's basically forgiven because, like I said, the actual gameplay itself is really interesting. I don't know if I'd call it revolutionary or anything like that, but it is something fresh, something different. I like the level design of it. They managed to keep it sort of focused without feeling too claustrophobic. And overall, it's an experience that managed to suck me in for more than just, a session or two. Grand Alliance is out on iOS and Android right now. At number 5 is Harry Potter, Puzzles and Spells. I'm just gonna go ahead and say this is not like some sort of complex, large-scale Harry Potter game. It is a match 3. It brings you a bunch of different match 3 boards that are all pretty darn good, and it also drops a few Harry Potter things into it, like having various monsters occupy the board, for instance. Now, we don't see really a lot of new match 3s that try to add a lot to the mix, and here we actually do see some innovation. Again, there's a lot of variations in the boards. There are a lot of Harry Potter themed objects that will show up and do different things to the boards. You get different spells, and overall, all of these things actually do impact the game pretty significantly. I'm a huge fan of match 3 games. I haven't actually played a new one in quite a while, so I was pleasantly surprised with how good this one is. Although just the brand itself might make you think, I don't know if I want to try it. I think if you like match 3s, you should. It's definitely a good example of one. Harry Potter Puzzles and Spells is out on iOS and Android now. At number 4 is Warhammer Quest Silver Tower, a turn-based strategy game, which is a actually pretty intense game considering it's mobile. They really do not forego any of the stuff that you would expect out of a full-fledged strategy game, and that's great. I'm not saying that like every game has to be that in order for it to be good, but when we see a lot of these sort of simplified turn-based games, it's nice to see one that actually leans into the roots. It's in the Warhammer universe. Now, it does have its own unique ways of handling various things, and it does have a currency system. Like, it's not entirely not a mobile game or anything, but I think it's a nice, detailed turn-based strategy game that I'm definitely really impressed with. It's also a game that's going to be updated over time, and I'm really interested to see where it goes. Warhammer Quest Silver Tower is out on iOS and Android right now. At number 3 is Atari Combat Tank Fury, which is not what you're expecting at all. Like the Harry Potter game we mentioned earlier, it is a match 3 game. And it's not just a match 3 game, it is a tank battler in which you are doing match 3 to engage in tank combat as well as base building. It's weird. It's a weird game. But in its weirdness, it's actually quite interesting and amusing because you end up doing a lot of stuff that if I told you that it was a match 3 game right off without some kind of caveat, I don't know what you would think of it. Like a tank game that is a match. But there's, again, actually fairly complex base building. It has good graphics as well, and I certainly enjoyed spending time on it. Now, I do want to stress that it is slightly odd. There are aspects of it that do feel jarring when you're dropped into them, but once you get used to everything, it's actually a pretty good match 3 oriented RPG. Yes, I said that. Atari Combat Tank Fury is out now on iOS and Android. At number 2 is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Madness, which is basically a gacha game based on Ninja Turtles. It's a really good example of a gacha game. Like, the ones that we've seen this month have actually been, I would say, above average. I would not say that I think it brings a lot particularly new to it. It's kind of a mind genre at this point. However, as a gacha RPG skin, Ninja Turtles works really well. Also, you build up your base, customize the turtle lair, and ultimately, this is probably one of the best examples of this game, as I don't think it regresses anyway in the genre. Sometimes you bring in the licensed games, and they're kind of like a year behind with the genre, but I feel like this is a nice, fresh take on it, despite the fact that it's obviously quite derivative of the genre itself. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Madness is out on iOS and Android now. And finally, at number 1 is Raziel Dungeon Arena, which is an action RPG with over 60 dungeons. Now, basically what they're billing it as is a slash and loot. Of course, I would call this more or less a hack and slash with loot type elements. Probably the most unique element of it is the tag team battling system they've put in here. What I like about it is being able to sort of pick a couple of heroes and switch between them. They did a good job building levels that sort of require you to have a couple of different types of powers, and it works really good. There's also co-op, and it's actually quite good. Now, there is, of course, currency in the game. You can buy it. They want to make money. But I would go ahead and say that this game doesn't really play like its primary purpose is making money. It plays like a game that's trying to be a good game, if not a great game. And I'm going to go ahead and say it deserves your time. Give Raziel Dungeon Arena a shot. It's out on iOS and Android right now. And that is all for this month. Did you try any of these games? Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week, and the best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. So click subscribe. Don't forget to enable all notifications. And as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at Falcon the Hero. And we'll see you next time right here on Game Ranks.